Greetings. I am Dr. Paulina Van, author of Regala Healing, an evocative approach for self care, self understanding, and inner healing. I have the honor of hosting this show, The Poetry of Healing, and I want to welcome you from all over the world. So if you wouldn't mind, please put where you're joining from. We really appreciate it. I want to begin also by saying happy 4th of July or Independence Day weekend. I'm sure we've all been enjoying it and being with family and friends. In the United States, it's the actual holiday is tomorrow, but I want to give you a little bit of trivia. Okay, so within um, 18 countries, will be celebrating independence in the next week. So that's really wonderful. That's over 180 celebrations of Independence Day all around the globe. So have fun, be safe, and be kind to each other. Well, on that note, we'll be spending a lot of time with family and friends and maybe hosting and definitely um, maybe being with other people. Today's topic is all about perfectionism and how thriving for perfection creates the script for our lives. And so, think about it as you are preparing for guests or you're preparing to go somewhere. What kind of stressors and what kind of expectations are you putting on yourself? So, our special guest today is someone that you'll definitely know by face on this blackdoctor.org platform. It is Ellis Dean, and he is a perfectionist as well as I am. And him and I will be uh, just delving into an imperfect discussion about perfectionism. And so, what I invite you to do so that we can all know where we're going during this next half hour or so, Alice and I will describe perfectionism. See, I can't even say it right, so that's okay. I'm not going to try to be perfect. Um, Describe perfectionism and its roots and origins. Explore how perfectionistic behaviors affect our life, especially the mental health and relationships. Discuss signs and behaviors for you to see if you are a perfectionist. Then we're going to offer ways to soothe or overcome perfectionism, and then end with a meditation to relieve stress caused by perfectionism. So, as we always begin with a centering exercise to help us focus and collect our energies for this time together. And it's a time for you and a gift for yourself. So it'll take about 2 minutes. And so I just ask you to kind of settle into the space wherever you are, even if you're not alone. This is something that you'll be able to do. Matter of fact, it's designed so that you can do it anytime or any place. And we're going to practice heart math. And it's heart focused breathing to open our hearts to be receptive to the messages and discussion today. And so, those of you who've been with me before, you know this. Those of you who are uh, joining for the first time, it's simple. You don't have to be perfect at it. So, I invite you, let's practice. And that's what it's called. It's called a practice. And I invite you to lower your gaze or close your eyes if you're comfortable, or just focus on a stationary, um, plain object if neither of those things work for you. And we're going to be connecting with our heart by doing heart focused breathing. And so I'm going to ask you to focus your attention in the area of your heart, which is the left side of your upper chest. And you're going to imagine your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area. And you're going to breathe slower and deeper than usual. So let's try it. You're going to breathe in through your nose, nice and slowly, and imagine your heart expanding And then breathe out slowly through your mouth and imagine your heart getting smaller. And in order to kind of slow yourself down or pace yourself, you can count to 5 inhaling and 5 exhaling. So let's do it. Inhale through your nose, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And imagine that beautiful heart of yours getting bigger. And then exhale through your mouth, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Now do it on your own. If you need to count to 4 to slow yourself down, that's better, comfortable for you, do that. And just imagine every time you take a breath, your heart's getting bigger. And then every time you exhale, your heart is getting smaller. Those athletic types, if you want to count to 6 or 7, and that feels comfortable, you do that also. So let's give our heart one more breath. Okay, so in, 3, 4, 5. Beautiful heart is big, and now exhale. 3, 4. And now I'd like you to take just a regular deep breath in to notice you are here. And I'd like you to take another deep breath in and out to notice how your body feels from the tip of your head to your toes. And then take this last deep breath to enter this session. Okay, so for those of you who've just joined us, I am Dr. Paulina Van, the author of Regala Healing, an evocative approach for self care, self understanding, and inner healing. And I'm the host of this show, Poetry of Healing. And today's show is all about perfectionism. And you are just in time to meet our guest. And I'd like to welcome to the show Mr. Ellis Dean.
Hello. Yep.
Hi, Ellis. I see that you may be on the move. I hope you're stationary.
I am stationary somewhat. I am being a dad, and my
Mhm,
son he plays baseball, and
mhm.
so it is. They don't care about what day or what time it what time of day. I am being a dad, but I felt this topic and this conversation it was very important, and so I'm here with you all and our viewers right now, and I'm really excited to have this discussion with you.
Well, we've been kind of dibbling and dabbling in this discussion for the last 6, 7 months. And so I am just so grateful for you to stop and be able for us to kind of dig in and just talk about it. So viewers, if you see him and I getting excited, it's not that we don't know you're there, but we have been waiting to have this discussion and we wanted to have it. So Ellis, please, your face is known on blackdoctor.org, but if you can just share with the audience what you like that about yourself, so they'll connect with you.
Well, yeah, a lot of people probably do know me here on Black Doctor because I host a lot of our, a number of our programs. And if I'm not hosting, I'm behind the scenes on our Facebook Live programs because I oversee most, if not all, of our Facebook Live programming. But about me is I was a business major initially in college, and then I decided I wanted to help people. So I went and got a second bachelor's in psychology, and then went on and got a master's in professional counseling and worked in public hospitals, mental health facilities for a number of years, and then started working my way back into business. And so I've kind of did that vacillation back and forth between business, healthcare, mental health, and so that's really what prepared me. I've worked with in my business realm. I've worked with a number of television and film studios, from Universal Searchlight to Will Packer Productions to Fox Searchlight, to like all everything in between. I've worked on some movies you may have heard of back in the day, and television shows. I've been on television shows like Meet the Browns and House of Pain on
Right.
that side. And then on the mental health side, I've worked in children's hospitals. I've done individual counseling, I've done couples counseling, and I've done group counseling as well. So I've run the gamut, and that kind of depth and breadth of experience makes me feel sometimes I am overly qualified to have these type of discussions.
Well, you know what? Now it explains, and I want to tell the viewers, any topic I bring up with Ellis, he can take it and run with it. And so I just, I didn't have the sense of all of those layers of your experience, and now it explains it. And so we are prepared, okay, to get into this. So, without further ado or delay or being perfect, like you and I are acclaimed perfectionists in
Yeah.
recovery, let's start with so the audience can understand what we're talking about. So, what is your description, personally or professionally or both, of perfectionism?
I think it's those people, the for me as a perfectionist, and that people that are perfectionists, there is an inner voice that says, I'm not good enough, right? And so we're always trying to silence that voice, whether it is what we do in our work, whether we do in our life, however we're doing, whatever we're doing, we're really working to silence that voice that says, I'm not good enough. Now, we got that message, and we could talk about that later on in this conversation. We
Mhm.
got that message, and that message may have been incorrect, erroneous, or whatever. It does, that part of it is a different part of this discussion, but we got the message, and we internalize that message, and that message says, I'm not good enough. And so whatever we do, whatever we endeavor in, whether it's athletically, when I was playing sports, I wanted to be the best on the field. I had to be the best on the field. Whether it was academically, I had to be the best in the classroom, and it always had to be something that was a challenge. But I vacillated between striving to be the best and perfect, and then or giving up altogether. And so there's that challenge, right? There's that push pull that happens with perfectionism, because you say, if I can't be the best, then I might not engage at all. And so therein lies the challenge of perfectionism, because when you don't think you're good enough, you say, I'm either going to be the best or I'm not going to engage. And there's no room for space in between those two opposing opposites. And that's the challenge.
Mhm. So you're talking about um, highly personal standards that are most likely, most of the times, unrealistic, and then being highly critical of yourself. You
Yes.
talk about that inner voice, and so we can be perfectionistic against ourselves. We can be perfectionistic against others, and
Yeah.
also um, we can have in our minds this. I call it, it's not scientific, but I call it this pseudo perfectionism or created that we think that other people want us to be at a certain level. So you began to talk about it. So let's talk about what are the roots of perfectionism for you? And then how has it shown up in your life? And then I'll share a little bit as well.
You know, and it's funny, when I was helping, when we were talking about this show, I was like, yeah, it's hard to be on this side of as
Uh-huh.
the guest. But I will say, for me, it's rooted in trauma, and that's the sad thing. It is rooted in childhood trauma. Um, just understanding that I never felt good enough for my father. I never felt good enough for both my parents.
Mhm.
in that space. It was hypercritical behavior
Mhm.
around me in my formative years. And so it was, yeah, you did that, but you could have done this. Yes, you did that, but you could have done this. And so that that messaging that I was talking about earlier in terms of not being good enough, it was, yeah, that was good, but it could have been better. And so when you internalize that, right, and that becomes part of your self esteem, it is the only time I found happiness was when I was perfect, right? And even then, that happiness was fleeting, right? Because there was another space where I could be good. There was another space where I could be better, because that was the messaging. So it didn't matter what the outcome was. It wasn't about the outcome. It was about me trying to silence that internal voice that I picked up. And that understanding later on in life, and that's what prompted me in my career, right? In terms of when I was a counselor, I thought I wasn't good enough as a counselor. When I was working in marketing, I thought I wasn't good enough in marketing. It turned out I was good at both, right? And so, but understanding that that voice was, you're not good enough. And so when I would search a new challenge, I would search a new horizon to prove how good I was, right? And so I found myself taking on other endeavors, taking on many different challenges, whether it was, oh, I'm going to go get another degree. Oh, I'm going to go take on a job that I didn't have any experience in, but I'm going to get experience in this job because I know internally, like something inside me said, I am good enough, but also something was saying I wasn't. And so I kept fighting that fight. And so it wasn't until you're satisfied with who you are today that I started seeing real sustainable success. And so I think what I want people to really take away from this show is understanding is, if you're a perfectionist, sustainable success doesn't happen until you silence that voice and really lean in. Because ultimately, what I want every perfectionist to hear is, you are good enough. You are more than good enough to do what you are doing and to take on whatever you have challenge you have decided to take on. You have to believe it. And when you believe that, that's when the sustainable success will happen in your life.
Oh, powerful, powerful, powerful. So you talked about what you did in your educational journey as a
Mhm.
perfectionist and your professional. Is there anything in the personal aspect of your life that you would feel comfortable sharing that would manifest that perfectionism?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I used to write a blog, and I still try to write it every once in a while. And then my one of my most recent blogs, I talked about an experience I had with my children, right? Because even though black don't crack, that I do have children that are older, in their teens, and my daughter's is 20. Um, and I found that my perfectionism was having an impact on their development, and I didn't think that it would, because I was like, hey, I'm a great parent. I show up. As you can see, I'm in my car at
Mhm,
my son's baseball game on a holiday weekend. I'm like, hey, we're gonna do this. But the challenge is this: is that what I expected for myself of not being good enough, I was sending that same message to my children, in that, oh, you got to be, why didn't you get an A? Oh,
mhm,
you scored two touchdowns, why didn't you score three? Right? And so it was that same narrative that I was hearing from my parents, I was giving to them, and it was causing anxiety in them. It was impacting my relationship with them. And I had this kind of aha moment when I was writing a blog, and just, my daughter, unbeknownst to her, and she read the blog, so she now knows how the impact that she had on me was, she finally pushed back, right? After she went up to college, and and gone to counseling herself, and she pushed back on me. I was like, I'm tired, you know, of the constant, you know, checking of you're not hearing that message, and basically you're not good enough, right? You can be better. What's wrong with you? And thankfully, God led me to hear that message, right? Because I don't think, a lot of times we get those messaging, we get pushback in our life and we don't hear it.
Mhm.
But thankfully, I was aware enough to hear it and realize the damage I was doing to both of them and creating perfectionism in both my children. And it wasn't, and when I got that message, I started behaving differently with them, started interacting differently with them, and my relationship with both of them improved significantly, which I thought I had a great relationship,
Mhm.
but it wasn't until I realized that I was pushing them too hard, and not just recognizing how really great they were without me pushing them, and that they could be better, and I didn't need to push them to be the people that I wanted them to be. That was a kind of a watershed moment for me, and for both of them, and it really has just kind of been an explosion in terms of just how I see the world and how I see things.
Mm. Oh, wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I just want to, if you're just joining us, we are talking about perfectionism. This is the master full Ellis Dean. If you're just joining and you didn't see the introduction, please rewind or go uh, view it from the beginning, because he comes to us with incredible, incredible experience. I just want to add something about the roots of my perfectionism, and it very similar, but mine came from not only my parents and family, but the school and the people in the neighborhood. I have an older sister, and I was always compared with her. So when I was going through school, I followed her, and had her teachers. They want to know why I wasn't as smart as her, because my sister is brilliant. And I had to work very hard to get my grades. And the other is, and this is what I really absorbed. I've let it go, but being told that because of my skin color and my hair texture, I wasn't pretty, and I definitely wasn't as pretty as my sister. And so these things just really uh, had me at a place where not only was I working 2,000% at my academics, but at work. And then when it came to my personal appearance, I never felt comfortable. And I changed my outfit several times before going to church. And is there too much cleavage, or are my knees showing? It just became so obsessive and absolutely stressful. And same with you. I didn't feel that I was worthy of love, so I looked for love in places that were not good, and allowed people in my life that weren't good. So this perfectionism and this inner voice just affects all aspects of our lives. And so, we don't have time to go into every aspect,
Right.
but what would you say? What would you want to share with our viewers about the impact of perfectionism on our mental health and our relationships? Well, we touch on that a bit, but anything you want to share would be helpful.
Well, I think ultimately, I think perfectionism can lead to some sort of working or walking depression, right? Because what you don't feel is that full acceptance, right? And so it impacts our ability to connect completely with others, because when you have relationships, you have friendships, whether it's just same sex, or friendships, or whether it's a romantic relationship, you don't feel like your partner is fully engaged with you, right? And so you might self-sabotage, right? You might do some things that are really detrimental to the relationship because you don't trust that they are there for you because you don't feel like you're good enough or worthy of their friendship, affection, love, whatever it takes. And so your relationships tend to be superficial. With regards to our work relationships, it tends to be we tend to hop, right? We tend to have a wandering eye when it comes to our work relationships because you go, well, I like this job, but how long is this going to be good? How long is this going to last? How long am I going to be? And so when you have that inner voice, what can happen is you can start again to self-sabotage, and then you want to create a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so um, we create our own problems because you want to have a problem so you can say, see, I was right. Right.
Mhm.
And so if you don't recognize that in your own behaviors, it can play out in many, many different ways. And like I said, you can have this kind of walking depression and this kind of verge of anxiety where you're just like
Okay.
to crap
Okay. So,
gauge
Ellis,
100%.
you're dropping off. The screen is freezing. Okay, you're back.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you don't really fully engage, and that's not good because engagement is where you have the richness and depth of relationships. Engagement is where you go to that next level, whether it's in a relationship or whether where you have interdependence. When we're talking about a relationship, that's what you really want. You want that interdependence. You want to in your work relationships, you want to be able to be able to even if you make a mistake, you don't want to feel like it's catastrophic and on your job and everything. If everything becomes catastrophic, even work, daily day work becomes anxiety ridden, and it becomes paralyzing. And so you don't want to have that happen. You want to be okay with all of that. And so I think ultimately what I want people to walk away with is understanding that perfectionism is paralyzing, and we have to do what we can to overcome that and be comfortable with who we are today in order to be better for ourselves and our family in the future.
Absolutely. And you alluded to procrastination and
Yeah.
impact on productivity very early because as perfectionists, we do things over and over and over, and it never seems to hit the ceiling of, and it's not even excellence, it's beyond excellence. And we get in a loop and we just stay in that loop and either don't finish on time. The other
Yep.
thing I want to pick up um, is this stress and anxiety response, and for me, it's demonstrated as claustrophobia. So being very anxious and
Yeah.
not able to breathe and experiencing the walls closing. And that's very, very disruptive to your life. But I didn't make the connection. So it's important to make the connection on how your body and your mind is responding to this perfectionism. And
Yeah.
so I see the time that we are um, at almost time, but I don't want us to drop off right now if
Right.
that's okay. I really want us to share with the viewers um, some helping strategies. What can they do to, first of all, recognize, so we've been talking about a number of things that have appeared in our lives, which are signs of perfectionism, but, you know, look within, reflect within, and see what standards are you um, putting out there for yourself? What is your inner voice telling you? And so, Ellis, what are a couple of tips or helping strategies for our viewers?
One of the things I used to say when I was counseling was, where did the rock hit the water, right? And I say that because like if you have a lake, and you throw a rock into that lake, and you see all the ripple when the rock hits the water, all these ripples, right? So what we're talking about with perfectionism in terms of the behaviors and how it manifests in our lives, those are ripples, right? But if we want to get rid of the ripples, we've got to get to where the rock actually hit the water. And the rock hit the water for me was that understanding that it was my relationship with my parents, and understanding that that trauma caused a rippling effect that impacted all other areas of my life. And so you've got to really find a space to where you can go back to where was that initial trauma that happened for you in your life that caused where the rock hit that water and caused that rippling effect of perfectionism throughout the rest of your life. So if you can do that, that would be number one. Number two, once you find that, you've got to find a way to come to peace with that. And that is, if that is with personal counseling, whether it's through prayer and meditation, whatever you need to do, find a way to come to peace with that trauma. And it doesn't mean it's okay that it happened to you, because that's a whole different conversation. But what we're saying is we can't let trauma, I was a coach, as you know, I still consider myself a coach. And one of the things I would say is, like, when you'd have a bad loss and then you'd have a game the next week, I said, don't let that team beat you twice. And what I mean by that is, you lost to them once before. Now you're facing another team. And if you let what happened last week impact what you do this week, you're going to lose to that team twice. Well, how does that manifest in our life? Well, that means that you've had trauma in your life and it's impacted you in that moment. But if you let it impact you today, it's going to make you lose twice. You lost when it hit you, and you're losing today. And so don't lose twice to the same trauma. So have the trauma, acknowledge it, recognize the impact that it's had on your life, and then do what you need to do to accept it and overcome it so you can be the best version of you today and going forward. So those are the tips that I would offer to our audience.
Absolutely. A- Absolutely. And I just want to add that, and Ellis has said it earlier, that we are not perfect. We will
No.
not. We're human. And so we really need to learn how to embrace our imperfections. And my thing is, I made a mistake or I didn't make the goal. And I look at it and say, what was it? And what can I do better the next time? So I'm looking for the lesson in the failure. So, Ellis, I am so glad we had this conversation. Now we've opened a whole bunch of doors that we can go through in the future, but I just like to take about 3 more minutes to give the audience a meditation because you mentioned it, and that's what meditation does. Meditation allows us to let go, and in the case of perfectionism, we need to let go of this inner voice that's chattering and not building us up, and also the feeling that we're not worthy. So you're welcome to stay on stay here for the meditation or go backstage and do what you do. Okay. Okay. Thank you again, Alice. And so for the meditation today, I chose one by a dynamic African American entrepreneur. Her name is Aisha Noel, and she guides women to overcome the imposter syndrome, that is, feelings of inadequacy that persists, in spite of success. But even though she works with women, her coaching um, is also applicable to men, everyone. Okay. So I'm just going to ask you, as I did earlier, just to settle yourself. You can lower your gaze or close your eyes. And I want to take you through some affirmations. It's going to take about 90 seconds. And affirmations are used uh, to reprogram your unconscious mind, that inner chatter, to quiet that chatter, and it encourages us to believe certain things about ourselves and to create the reality that we really want. And for this session, it's going to help us to release tendencies to be perfect. And so it goes like this: I will say it out loud, and then you mentally repeat it. And if you're somewhere where you can say it out loud, that would be great as well. But if there are people around you, they may, kind of look at you. But you know what? You're not perfect. So do whatever feels comfortable for you. So here we go. I have a little bit over 2 dozen, but they'll go very smoothly. So here we go. I embrace my imperfections. Even when I fail, I am still good enough. Even when I make a mistake, I still learn. I release perfectionism. It doesn't belong to me. I give myself permission to fail and make mistakes. I give myself permission to be kind and passionate and compassionate with myself. I can be a high achiever and still fail. I can be successful and still make mistakes. The beauty in life lies in imperfection. I allow myself to learn and grow. I can make a mistake and still be valuable. I can make a mistake and still move forward. I don't need to be perfect. I need to be me. And in before I close, I want to read you a brief poem from my book, Regala Healing. And if you have the book with you, it's on page 57. If you have the ebook, it's on page 42. And I wrote this back in 2020. Perfection was my aim. Perfection was just a game. Perfection had its place. Perfection delayed my pace. Perfection was a deception. Perfection created a false perception. Perfection is no longer my claim. Loving myself with fervor will take me further. And so that's my message for you today. If you're a perfectionist, begin loving yourself and treating yourself with kindness. I want to thank you for joining me today. There are 2 shows that I've done that will help you um, with managing this perfectionism. There's one on self compassion that uh, we did on December the 5th, 2021. It's called Self Compassion. And then one on inner voice that we did earlier this year, March the 6th, 2022. So I ask you to please join me every first and third Sunday at 9 a.m. Pacific time right here on blackdoctor.org. Like and share this program. Please leave comments. I do read and will respond to your comments and questions. Subscribe so that you'll know when new programming is available. And you can visit my site at regalahealing.com to learn more about my healing and self care work and to purchase my book. The ebook is on Amazon. And I want to thank you. Oops, my voice. Want to thank you for joining me today. And as always, I wish you love and light, and I'll see you the next time.